The kick echoed louder than the thunder overhead. On a cold, rain-slicked street outside a quiet veterinary clinic, a young woman in blue scrubs dropped to her knees as her dog yelped in pain. A polished shoe, expensive, careless, cruel, had just slammed into the ribs of the one creature that had never abandoned her. Cars slowed. Curtains shifted. No one stepped in. Until someone did. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for those who can't defend themselves, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us who we are when it truly matters. Dr. Emily Carter had always believed that compassion was stronger than cruelty. It was the belief that carried her through sleepless nights in veterinary school, through student loans that felt like shackles, and through the heartbreak of losing her father before he could see her open Port Blossom Veterinary Clinic. She had built that little clinic from nothing but grit and grief, painting the walls herself, scrubbing the floors long after midnight, and hanging her father's old stethoscope behind the front desk as a quiet promise that she would never treat life as disposable. Her dog, Max, had been with her since her second year of school. A German Shepherd mix with alert eyes and a scar along his shoulder from a past no one talked about, Max had been rescued from an overcrowded shelter the same week Emily nearly dropped out. He had a way of resting his head on her knee when her chest tightened with doubt. He had guarded her car on late nights. He had listened to her cry when the world felt too heavy. He was not just a dog. He was the living proof that broken things could heal. That afternoon, the sky had been the color of steel wool. Emily had stepped outside the clinic to calm Max, who had grown anxious at the rumble of thunder. She clipped his leash gently, whispering reassurances as rain began to mist across the pavement. That was when a black luxury sedan rolled up too fast for a small town street. Out stepped Jason Whitmore, son of a real estate magnate whose developments had swallowed half the county. Jason was 22, groomed in arrogance, raised in the echo chamber of entitlement. He wore a tailored suit that looked absurd against the modest houses lining the road. He had come to the clinic earlier that week demanding immediate service for his designer puppy and had been told, politely, that emergencies came first. He had not liked being told no. Now he stood in front of her again, rain dotting his hair, eyes sharp with resentment that had fermented into something uglier. He mocked her clinic, her little practice, her outdated building. He sneered at Max, calling him a mutt, a stray, a security blanket for someone who would never rise above small-town mediocrity. Emily felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her voice steady. She had endured condescension before. She could endure it again. But Max sensed what Emily tried to ignore. He stiffened, stepping protectively in front of her. He did not bark. He did not lunge. He simply stood. Jason's pride could not tolerate being challenged, not by a woman who refused to bow, and certainly not by a dog. The kick came sudden and vicious. Max's body slid across the wet asphalt. The sound he made was not just pain, it was confusion. Emily's scream tore through the drizzle as she dropped beside him, hands shaking as she checked his ribs. Jason laughed, a short, hollow sound, muttering that she should train her animal better. And that was when another figure appeared down the road, running. Lieutenant Daniel Hayes had returned to Port Blossom only 3 days earlier. A Navy SEAL for nearly a decade, Daniel carried the quiet discipline of someone who had seen too much and survived anyway. His younger sister, Lily, had once brought a wounded sparrow to Emily's clinic years ago. Emily had treated that bird with the same care she gave every animal. Daniel never forgot that. He had been jogging in the rain, trying to outrun memories that refused to fade, when he heard the yelp. What he saw ignited something primal. He saw a woman shielding her injured dog. He saw a man standing over them with a smirk. He saw injustice in its rawest form. Daniel didn't shout. He didn't posture. He closed the distance in long, deliberate strides. There was something in his eyes that Jason had never encountered before, not anger alone, but certainty. The kind of certainty forged in battlefields and brotherhood. Jason attempted to brush him off with a sarcastic remark about minding his own business. Daniel's voice remained calm, but beneath it lay steel. He knelt briefly to assess Max's condition with surprising gentleness, his large hands moving carefully along the dog's side. He had treated injured K9 units overseas. He knew what to look for. Max whimpered but did not snap. He sensed protection had arrived. Daniel stood, rain dripping from his hair, and looked at Jason in a way that stripped away bravado. He spoke of accountability. Of how strength was not proven by hurting the vulnerable. Of how real power meant restraint. Jason tried to laugh again, but it faltered. Cars had stopped now. Phones were raised. Witnesses gathered courage in numbers. Emily felt her heartbeat slowing, not because the fear was gone, but because she was no longer alone. Daniel insisted on accompanying Emily and Max inside the clinic. He carried Max himself, cradling the 80-pound dog as if he weighed nothing. The clinic lights flickered on against the gray afternoon, illuminating the small space that had been Emily's sanctuary. Her hands steadied as training overtook emotion. She performed X-rays, administered pain relief, checked for internal damage. 2 cracked ribs. No punctured lung. It could have been worse. In the waiting room, Daniel sat quietly, his posture rigid but his eyes soft whenever he heard Max stir. He did not ask for thanks. He did not need recognition. He simply remained. Outside, something else was happening. A teenager who had recorded the incident uploaded the video before the rain even stopped. Within hours, it spread beyond Port Blossom. The footage of a well-dressed young man kicking a defenseless dog ignited outrage. But what struck viewers even more was the image of the Navy SEAL stepping in, not with violence, but with unwavering composure. Jason's last name, once a shield, became a spotlight. The following days were turbulent. Protesters gathered briefly outside Whitmore Development. Sponsors distanced themselves. Jason's father, a man who had built an empire through control, faced a reality he had never prepared his son for: consequences. Emily, meanwhile, faced something unexpected. Donations began appearing at the clinic. Handwritten letters arrived, thanking her for her compassion. Former clients returned with baked goods and quiet apologies for not intervening sooner. The town that had once watched from behind curtains began stepping forward. Max healed slowly. Daniel visited daily under the pretense of checking on the dog, though it was clear he was also checking on Emily. They spoke in long conversations after closing time, about service, about loss, about the invisible scars both soldiers and civilians carry. Emily learned that Daniel had lost teammates overseas. Daniel learned that Emily still kept her father's stethoscope because letting go felt like betrayal. Healing recognized healing. One afternoon, a black sedan parked outside the clinic again. This time, Jason stepped out alone. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. Public backlash had stripped him of illusions. His father had forced him to watch the video repeatedly. For the first time, he saw himself as others did. He walked into the clinic without swagger. Max, still tender but stronger, lifted his head. Jason's apology was not eloquent. It stumbled. It faltered. But it was real. He admitted he had never been told no without being rescued from discomfort. He confessed that seeing the damage he caused had unsettled him in ways he did not expect. He offered to pay every medical bill, to donate to local shelters, to volunteer. Emily studied him carefully. Forgiveness was not weakness. It was measured courage. She told him that money would not undo what happened. But changed behavior might. She suggested he start by volunteering at the county animal shelter every weekend for 6 months. Cleaning cages. Walking abandoned dogs. No cameras. No publicity. Jason agreed. Daniel watched from a distance, arms folded. Redemption, he knew, was harder than punishment. Months passed. The outrage faded, replaced by something quieter but stronger. Jason kept showing up at the shelter. He learned the names of dogs no one else remembered. He discovered that earning trust from a frightened animal required patience he had never practiced. The first time a trembling rescue leaned into his touch, something in him shifted. Max eventually returned to full strength. The scar along his ribs became just another story written into his fur. He no longer flinched at sudden movements. Emily no longer felt alone when she locked up at night. Daniel found himself lingering longer each evening, offering to fix broken steps, repaint faded signs, install better lighting outside the clinic. Service, he realized, did not always require a battlefield. Port Blossom changed too. The clinic expanded with community support. A new wing was added for low-income families who could not afford emergency care. It was named the Second Chance Unit. On the day of its opening, townspeople gathered under clear skies. Emily stood beside Max, Daniel at her side. Even Jason attended quietly, standing near the back, hands folded, face thoughtful. Emily spoke not about the kick, not about humiliation, but about resilience. About how cruelty could spark division or inspire unity. About how one moment of harm had revealed countless moments of courage. As applause rose, Max barked once, strong, joyful. If this story has touched your heart so far, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who believes people can grow. And before we reach the final moments, I have a special request for you. Comment the word "second chance" below if you believe no one is beyond redemption. Because here is what truly matters. Strength is not measured by how hard you can strike. It is measured by how fiercely you can protect. Wealth is not proven by possessions, but by the capacity to change when confronted with truth. And sometimes, it takes a wounded dog, a determined vet, and a silent warrior to remind an entire town what courage looks like. Jason never became a hero. That was never the point. But he became accountable. He became present. He became someone who no longer needed to prove power through harm. Daniel and Emily's story continued, not in dramatic headlines, but in quiet mornings and shared purpose. Max grew older, his muzzle graying, his eyes still watchful. The clinic thrived. The town remembered. And on that same stretch of rain-washed road where cruelty once echoed, children now walked rescue dogs on bright afternoons, laughter replacing the memory of a kick. Because when one person stands up, others remember how. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything. If this story moved you even a little, please engage with the video, like, comment your thoughts, and share it so more people can believe in kindness over cruelty. Your support keeps stories like this alive. In a world that often feels loud with anger, choose to be the quiet strength that steps in. Just like he did.